College and CUNY and the CUNY Graduate Center. Veena is very well known for her classic The Making of Colonial Lucknow, 1856 to 77, and her book Dowry Murder, The Imperial Origins of a Cultural Crime, as well as a collection of articles, edited volume Shaam Avadh, Writings on Lucknow, and particularly for an essay that she wrote on the Courtesans of Lucknow called Lifestyle as Resistance, the Case of the Courtesans of Lucknow, which has been reprinted and circulated widely. Today Veena is going to talk about her latest book, Gurgaon, Goregaon, and she'll tell us whether it was Goregaon, Gurgaon from Mythic Village to Millennium City. I've been told on good authority that Veena is not going to write another book after this, but I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe she can tell us, and that she's so she can start with the most recent book. And Veena.
Well, I want to just reminisce for a moment. I began the very first talk I gave formally as an academic before even I had my PhD. Was at Columbia and was at the Southern Asian Institute, which was at SIA. And I garnered what I think is one of my most treasured compliments. It was from Ainsley Emery, who after my talk said, and I didn't know him that well to really appreciate what he meant, he said, "Do you know that I never slept through a talk?" Said, "It's that you kept me awake the whole time." So I hope that today, which may be my last talk, because I have that I will not put you to sleep, even though this is sleepy time for many who are really aching for their cocktails and so on. I want to say that I've been a historian of, I thought just of one city because I grew up there, but then I moved to another in India, and I was so unhappy at just living at one edge in my own house without any clue as to what made this new area tick, and every day it would change, every day I would lose my way, and that provoked me to say, why don't you get down and write, think of this as history happening, unrolling itself, and you could document it. It was a very tough start because Gurgaon had no archive. Your historians normally go for, so then I said, okay, I'll go to the municipal corporation and see what their records are like. And it was small pigeon-infested rooms, 2 or 3 geckos running along, and there were files, but they were stacked on the floors, and they were in no particular order, and certainly no one would allow me to come near them. They almost took out their lathis to say, this is private property, you're not supposed to touch it. I said, no, I took permission from the commissioner to come and see no madam, this is, so it had to be from scratch somewhere. This was a very peculiar project, and for a long time I thought you just can't write a history like this. It's a bit of it's a non-starter. However, when I got started, the first thing that bothered me was the name itself. Because I went to old residents and I said, what does Gurgaon mean to you? And they would say, oh, there's this ancient sage of the Mahabharata, he lived here. And it is because of him that it's not Gurgaon, it's Guru Gaon. And I said, well, it must have been Guru Gram if it was, in the epic, because, however, I then made my business to scan the epic, and I was looking at an English translation because I don't know how good my Sanskrit is. It's pretty non-existent. So I went into that and I looked high and low, and there is no such place where he was so ambitious. He wouldn't live in a dusty old village, But the villagers have made that such an important part of their past that you cannot deny it. So what I've done is try to explain it in the first chapter, that, I began to see similarities. The more I learned about this guru, you think of a guru, actually gurus can be awful people, and if there is the worst guru, I would give the prize to Guru Dronacharya. He was really a disgusting fellow, very greedy, very ambitious, and worst of all, the way he was a dirty trickster. So you find that he's very good, he's a very good archer himself, and he's got some, what I like, little firearms that he can shoot with his arrows. He's got little fire things that he used to shoot. So he'd become quite famous, but what really made him, in my eyes, just totally depraved, is that he became the guru of the 5 young princes, the Pandavas of the epic, the Mahabharata. And one of them, Arjun, the third born of the same mother. None of them had the same father, but that's another story. This third born Arjun wanted to be the best archer in the world, in their world. And the way he became that is that there was someone better than he. But he was a native guy, meaning what in today's language we would probably call Dalit or Aborigine or something like that. He was not of the Aryan stock where these princes allegedly came from. So the guru, this boy had come. He's a prince of a poor little kingdom near the village, which I have actually been to, where his statue stands. He wants to be educated in archery, and Guru Dronacharya just whisks him away and says, "I don't teach you. The scum of this earth, go away." And so what he does is very humbly and sweetly makes a little image of this guru and keeps that as his, inspiration, and becomes the best archer in the land. So now when Arjun is very good, but he can't be as good as this fellow because he sees him do some archery tricks. I won't go into all that. So Dronacharya, the guru, calls this Dalit king, who's now become a king, and he says, "You come and show us your tricks." And so he does, and then he says, who was your guru? And he said, "You were." So he said, "Well, you owe me Guru Dakshina," which is what you pay your guru in humble sort of offerings to the guru. So he says, "Yes, I will give you whatever you ask." So he says, "I would like your right thumb," so that he could never be an archer again and never beat Arjun, because he sees his skill and knows that Arjun, who's left-handed, could never be as good as, because the way bows and arrows are made, they're really made for right-handed people. So there was that problem which I discovered. Anyway, the long and the short of it is that the name Guru Gaon really begs the Homeric question, which is, the famous Homer, the blind historian. Well, there's a huge disputation now whether he actually existed or not. And so the Homeric question for Gurgaon is, did the Guru ever live in Gurgaon? But even more Homeric than that is the question, did the Guru exist? Because after all, he's part of an epic. He's part of a myth, if you can think of Iliad and the Odyssey and so on. I mean, did those people actually exist? So I'm not sure this guru existed, and so therefore whatever name you call it. But the chief minister, the current chief minister of Gurgaon, in his wisdom, has changed the name from Gurgaon, which means whatever gur, either it's guru or it's a lump of brown sugar, whatever it means, village. He's changed it into the Sanskrit version of that, into Gurugram, sort of thinking, because this is a bit of that Hindutva wave that is, has completely deluged the country. And it's part of that thinking that we should have Sanskritic names. So you have lots of cities, you don't know where you are anymore. They keep changing the name. They're threatening to change the name of Lucknow, but over my dead body. But we'll see. Because Lucknow has no meaning, so they want to make it Lakhanpur from Lakshman, the other epic fellow, and so on. But to get from there, so we already have one set of rather bad antecedents in Guru Dronacharya, if that he indeed existed and lived in that place where this city now stands. But the second is even more disturbing, because it's Mr. Sanjay Gandhi. And without Mr. Sanjay Gandhi's intervention, Gurgaon would never have made it to a city. To just give you a little background to that statement, Nehru was Sanjay's grandfather. Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India and freedom fighter and all the rest of it, famous guy. He's Sanjay's grandfather. He actually is, shaping modern India. And one of the things that bothered him, which bothers everybody, is that the independence of India came on the same day and the same time as the partition of India into Pakistan and India. So the Punjabi Hindus and whatnot had huge numbers in the millions come across and flooded eastern Punjab and down to Delhi. So Nehru was very keen that some city be given, because they've lost their Lahore and they've lost their Karachi and what have you. So his urban plan was to create in what now is Haryana, but then was part of the Punjab. Haryana, the province in which Gurgaon is, was only created in 1966. So this is Nehru in the 50s, makes a master plan of how cities will be built in eastern Punjab. And it would get a brand new capital, which is Chandigarh, and it would get a very big industrial complex in a place called Faridabad, which is, about an hour and a half away from Gurgaon, but in this Haryanvi part. So Gurgaon just remained, had become, its earlier history is very nebulous, not much. It's just, I'll begin to show you pictures in a minute, but it takes off after Sanjay Gandhi, who is a completely untalented and very unscrupulous, spoilt brat, decides that he is going to make the small car for India. And therefore he is dispatched by his mother to work with the Rolls-Royce company in England, which is of course famous for its little cars, every other person owns a Rolls-Royce. So he goes to the Rolls-Royce office, to the workshops. It's a 3-year course, which he abandons in a year and a half. And he basically makes trips. It's in some, side county quite far from London. He keeps making trips to London and meeting girlfriends and doing this, that, and the other. And he comes back with very little idea of how a car is to be made. However, what happens is, when he comes back, he says, now I need a factory. And they point him to Faridabad. That, there's land available, you will be given the best plots. By now, when he comes back, his grandfather has died, but his mother has become prime minister. So his mother's prime minister in the 70s, when he comes back, and asks his mother to get this passed. That whole gory story, which is fairly interesting, is in chapter 3 of this. So he then asks for 75 acres for his factory. But he goes to Faridabad and he rejects it because it's a very inconvenient drive from his farm, which is in South Delhi, and the closest point outside Delhi is Gurgaon. So he says, no, I'm going to set up my factory in Gurgaon. And everyone says, what? There's nothing there. So he says, so the chief minister of Haryana promptly gives him 379 acres. He's only asked for 75. And he says, I'll pay for it in installments, but my installments will begin after 5 years. So they say, fine. So in other words, 1,100 farmers were displaced because of this acquisition of land. No one was paid. It's all highly documented and in chapter 3. So that is Sanjay Gandhi for you. Very soon he couldn't make a car. When the car had to go for a test, it had to be loaded on the back of a truck and taken to when I read all this, I thought I was really saying, where have I stuck myself in this funny place? But this, Sanjay Gandhi's arrival, you know how people are, and he's not just a civil entrepreneur. He is not just a civilian, but he's also the government itself, because he's the Prime Minister's son. So a whole lot, before his car is ever ready, about 35 ancillary industries that make parts for his alleged small car have already sprung up. The chief minister is quickly creating a whole colony, as we call them, called Udyog Vihar, where all sorts of entrepreneurs are moving. People are moving out of Faridabad. Why? Because of this one character. They know how powerful it is to be linked with Sanjay Gandhi, because then, he'll be the conduit to the Prime Minister and you'll get all your schemes passed. So this is how it happened. And so the antecedents were so shady, and even to this day cast a long shadow on, because there are people who have done schemes like this. Chief ministers have gone to jail. I think 3 in a row have at least been sent to jail for various land deals. And so the place is shrouded in a lot of skullduggery and stuff like that. But why then do I, as a historian, see this as something to write a book about? It encapsulates the entire arc of urbanization. It's such a model. When I started to look at it, it begins as a village. Then it becomes a sort of a informal cantonment when the Mughals are in power. And one guy who's quite famous actually, Hemu, belongs to Gurgaon and Rewari, this area and they fight with the Afghans against the Mughals. And in fact, the second Panipat, the Battle of Panipat, those who are historians know that this is the last Hindu emperor, so-called emperor, because he takes over Delhi. When the Afghan dies, and Humayun dies in 1555, this guy moves and conquers Delhi and takes over Agra and all the regions which were under the Mughals, because Akbar is only 5 years old and he doesn't, Behram Khan is running around trying to, his father dies accidentally, and so it's all in chaos. And Hemu becomes an emperor. And he is the last Hindu emperor of what was to later be called Hindustan. But that said, nothing much happens till the British come in 1803 and conquer this area, including Delhi, And they create Gurgaon as a district headquarters. It's still not even urban because you need 5,000 people in any space for it to be called a town. So it's still called a village, and it's a district headquarters. So you see how it's slowly growing in importance. And from this district headquarters, you find Begum Samaru comes and builds a nice palace, which I will show you, and so on. And then finally we get what we have with Sanjay's big move. Industry starts coming. Today, just to tell you in 3 minutes before I begin, there are, of the Fortune 500 companies, there are 279 have their offices in this place. It has more than 40 malls, it has high-rises, it has the best housing stock in India today, and it has suddenly become the third richest city in India with an income of that nature. Most of the people are migrants. The natives have been outnumbered. There were just a few thousand, and now there are nearly 2 million people who live in Gurgaon. And it's 85% literate. But when I say literate, these are, a lot of the people are, your call center fellows. My name is Tham. I can help you with your computer. I've heard them. I have interviewed them. Yes. So you find that, and then the other side, which I have covered, is the poor migrant. This is the city of hope. This is the city of jobs, and you will see that more than half the population, this 2 million, are just poor migrants drawn from all over India, from village India. So they brought their village style and habits, but it's been very interesting to see how they urbanize. And I followed a few families in chapter 4, 5, 6 or whatever, and their stories to see how they mutate from being village yokels to urban almost sophisticates, but they are now, wearing high heels and lipstick, the women, and all this stuff is happening. And so the city has come into existence, but you'll see, more than my words can tell you, I will show you these photos. Here's where it is. It's just, in fact, from Delhi. The border of Delhi and Gurgaon is the same, and it's about let's say from Connaught Place, which is the center of New Delhi, of Lutyens' Delhi, it would be about 20 kilometers. But a lot of South Delhi has spread almost to the edges of Gurgaon. This is in Haryana. You can see that red blotch. I can't see it, you see, so I don't know what I'm showing. I think I'll just stand here and do it because otherwise I have to turn awkwardly around. I'll just go, this is just to place it. These are all the roads and connections to the rest of the countryside, which have all come up now. And many of them are not complete, so there are heaps of, this is a Google shot from above to show you that it's partial desert, partial used to be. These are the various sectors, and that's how the government of India does its job in colonial ways, which is you create sectors so that each sector has no sense, the numbers are all not sequential. And what is the point of numbering if it's not sequential? But it's part of the ethos of city building. This is one of the oldest temples. I haven't got a picture of the original. It was smaller than, say, if you put 4 of these chairs together. It was a little shrine, and this is what's happened. explosion of religion all over. You'll see, this is Begum Samaru. And
who is that temple for? Which deity?
Shitala. Shitala is a totally made up goddess, like all gods and goddesses are. But this one is really made up. She's made up to cure people of smallpox. That's her sole agenda. And when it disappeared, I asked them, I said, now smallpox is gone from India. It's been totally cleared up. So they said, it's all about rage and anger and, you know, stuff like that. Now people go there for psychological help. This is Begum Samaru. You can see that she is smoking the classic hookah of this part of India, where women smoke these long snakes, the hubble bubble. This is a drawing of her palace. This is what exists today. You know, it's become a government building, so it's been painted these awful colors, and it's there. This is the old district town, and it has, you know, the British cookie cutter town had a civil lines, a cantonment, a courthouse, a clock tower, a church. These were the features. These 5 things made up a town, and residential areas which people then would start to flock and build their own houses. But this is so very different from the new Gurgaon that this is the old Bazaar. You can see very colorful and crowded and jolly. Here's how shoes were sold, are sold still. You know, the 2 towns exist simultaneously. You'll see the modern one in a minute. This is still the old town. This is the old town way of standing around a big, this is some milky object being, no, jalebis being fried, sorry. Yeah, my eyes are so bad I did barely. This is what you eat at home. I went to many homes for interviews, and this was lentils, chickpea flour and yogurt. These are those baked breads, papad. That was the full meal. This is how people fetched water, but you can see a lot of water logging happening there. This is an old-time salon on the side of the road. It seems like the cow is propping up the ads, but I don't know, it's just a nice photo. This is the new city coming up. I'm giving you, this is nearest our house, which a huge 400-acre biodiversity park has been created. But before the park was created, when we would walk, we would meet this nilgai. This is the blue antelope of northern India, and they would just be roaming in this park. It was quite wild, and now it's been, these are the lands which have been taken from the farm, you know, the farmland, which becomes, you can see the new buildings in the distance. This is Sanjay Gandhi's factory. You can see how efficiently it works. He's sitting there in his kurta pajama and, I don't know, giving them instruction. He's got these 2 workers. This was the car which had to be lifted up to the truck because it would not start. He had stolen the engine. He had promised that it would be totally indigenous. That was and he had 2 engines smuggled in from Germany, but they took some other kind of fuel and it wouldn't start. I mean, it's all that stuff. Then what happens is that a very completely insignificant Japanese car maker called Suzuki comes in, buys up the Maruti plant and all its lands and so on, and sets up a brand new factory. Today Suzuki is one of the major car companies of Japan, and chiefly because of its factory in Gurgaon. This was to cause a total small car revolution in India, and you know, we never had traffic jams. We didn't have traffic. Now we have it. You'll see in a bit. That's the factory. And that's Gurgaon. So from what Sanjay Gandhi was making on the same plot, that's what's come up. This is the plotting. So now, as soon as this begins to happen, real estate agents begin to swarm. And the biggest real estate, again, a very defunct company called the DLF, Delhi Land and Finance Company, which has gone bankrupt, comes to Gurgaon, buys its first 40 acres, and today is one of the largest real estate companies in the world. They're building in Singapore, they're building in Dubai, they're building everywhere, and not to mention everywhere in India. And this part of the, so they create, very much like the rest of South Delhi, colonies, sort of plotted areas with houses and shops and so on. And our house is this one. This, can you see my finger?
No.
No? Oh, okay. It's this one. And there's an empty field next to it, which is still quite empty. Here it is. And this is our backyard with the pool. It's on a monsoon day. And this is where the building materials used to be sold. Now these have all been straightened. But this is the village and that is the city. Gurgaon has swelled into such a large city that today it has enveloped 52 villages. So Gurgaon is only one village. That's why the name Gurugram is even more ridiculous than it was to begin with. Because it's totally wiped out the names of the other villages. They're all now called Gurugram. These are just shots to show you how buildings came up, and we are absolutely brilliant at putting up electricity poles, and you can see that this is one of the better ones. Those buildings are the village. This is a village called Nathupur, and I literally saw huts being torn down by the owners who lived there and building these houses because housing was now needed for the immigrants who are coming in to work here, the migrants of various places. See, this is still Nathupur village, and it's become a little city inside a city. And this has happened to many. You can see that whoever puts up these lean-tos gets destroyed. This is after an attack on these poor people, and all the land was flattened, and you can see the big infinity towers, they're called, in the back. This is how urban villages happen, and this is now an urbanizing village, Nathupur, and there's another. See, now they have fancy houses like this inside the village because the people who sold their land, you see, after the chief minister, then it just became private. They got licenses, these real estate companies. They bought the land, but they paid the market rates. And so some of the villagers are extremely wealthy, and guess what they do when they become wealthy? They build a temple. And so this is this temple. Here's finished. We used to go for walks and take these pictures. And that is the new Jama Mosque. It was a small mosque, and people were doing their prayers on street corners, which is in my book actually, because this wasn't built. This is just finished this year when we went, and it's become it's actually a very lovely space, but it's still not big enough because the Muslims are now 5% of the 2 million. So it's still not big enough for everyone, but they're going to build more mosques in different locations. There are lots of plans for that. It was quite an ugly scene when some of these BJP type goons came along, and the Muslims were doing their prayers, and they took away their slippers. So everybody's shoes were gone. and it became a huge racket in the newspaper, and there was some scuffling and all that. But now things are improving, and we had a meeting. What's great about Gurgaon, what I really think is better than most cities I know about in India, is that it has very strong civil society has come up. And as soon as this communal thing happened where the Hindus are taking away the shoes, they were not only made to give back the shoes, but they were made to have a feast and invite the Muslims to eat with them, and so on. And then when Eid, I went for the Eid celebrations, the Hindus totally underwrote the costs of all the goats and this and that which had to be prepared, and it was totally made into a festival for all, and it was just lovely to see. So I feel that Gurgaon has a better future. I came from a city like Lucknow where we used to behave like this, and now Gurgaon is taking on some of those colors, so I'm very happy to report that. This is just the village. Here's a lady smoking her hookah. She tells fortunes, she sells pan, she makes tea, she makes good money, and as you can see, she's not, starving. This is the Potter's Colony. And they used to make all these, this is the change. When we first used to go, there were all these Hanumans and multi-armed goddesses and whatnot made by these potters. Now it's all Buddha. I don't know what's changed with that, but you can just see that you can hardly find a Hindu god among their pottery anymore. This is the metro. We are now connected with Delhi with the metro, and it's a very nice, clean, there'll be other pictures coming. This is a tractor taking people from the village to work at a construction site. There was no public transport, so this is how they would go in tractor after tractor of people being taken to build. These are the these motor scooters, these are actually small taxis owned by the villagers. They've become quite entrepreneurial, and they run these taxis and cabs, they're cab drivers. This was the shrine that led to this temple. You'll see that the side of it. Here is the one thing which I remember writing about in colonial Lucknow was the city must be clean. It was absolutely paranoia about disease in those days, and I used to sort of laugh at what they dug up all the cemeteries of the Muslims. They took the Karbala, which was the main Shia cemetery, to the edge of town. They did all this stuff to Lucknow, and sometimes I wish we would follow that playbook and clean up the city a little more. They haven't made proper arrangements for garbage disposal. There was no municipal corporation till 2013. Now it's come into power. They didn't have a building, so there was a coup. A coup with what? Well, a new institution was created. It's called Greater Gurgaon Development Corporation or something. No, some name like that, but all acronyms which I forget. And they have now taken over. So there's this tussle between, is the municipal corporation, there's a town and country planning. They're all at odds with each other. Nobody really knows. But what's really happening to the villages is that they're getting the city look. Please note that You can see that this is the village of Sikandarpur, where the scooters are parked, because everybody, you won't see cycles. It's almost gone, because Gurgaon makes not only the small car, but it makes hundreds of thousands of motorcycles. Honda Hero, all the motorcycles are made at Gurgaon factories. So nobody uses a bicycle. I'll show you a cycle. Oh, sorry. That way. This is just the traffic. Even the villages have started to gate their, in imitation of the big gated communities. Now this is moving into the city. My pictures are somewhat old, but they're coming. This is what's happened to that wilderness. It's become a very nice biodiversity park. They've taken out all the trees which were invasive and not native, and replanted the whole thing. It's really gorgeous now. It's a lovely place to walk. Here's Mr. Aditya Arya, who has a mere 1,000 cameras from the earliest ever made to the latest, and he's creating a museum with his own. It's a private museum which is coming up. This is the kind of cycling. You can do sky cycling. You can go on wires across the town on your bicycle, which is very, they put these things, so you go very fast and you go across. It's very strange. This is what happens when there's some rain, and these are this is a Bharat house, this is the Oberoi Hotel, these are some office buildings. This is what it looks like now, and all this part which you see empty here, all this is high rises now. This is an older picture which we took. Here's how the traffic is. Nobody quite knows on which side. I asked a person who came for his interview to be my driver. I said, on what side do you drive the car? He said, whichever side is open. He did not know that traffic moves on the left. It hadn't occurred to him. He said, Acha, but wherever there's a place you can go. I said, yes, you can, but you shouldn't. These are the malls. This is your young call center people. It has some fantastical buildings, I have to say. This is a very fancy luxury apartment dwelling. Those are gardens up on the rooftop. This is some more fancy housing. This, I tell you, if you like Bollywood, there is a place in Gurgaon called Kingdom of Dreams. It is so over the top that there are no words to describe it. This is the place you go there for plays and movies and food from, there'll be food from Lucknow, food from Hyderabad, food from Kerala, all sorts of regional restaurants inside. It's one here. See, this is the sort of things that you can see inside this Kingdom of Dreams. This is written by Javed, who's the husband of the famous Shabana Azmi. And most astonishing story. I've actually sat through 3 hours of this to make. Here, all this goes on. So it's. What is this? It has come like the amoeba, and that's it. So I will just tell you that there's, it's a difficult. I mean, after you write a book, you have emptied yourself out on this subject. I never thought I would ever speak about it again, but here I am. So if you have any questions, I just want to say that this is not unusual. This is happening all over, not just India, but we went to Africa to actually just see wildlife. But we drove through about 5,000 miles of Kenya back and forth. And we kept seeing things that I would say, like Gurgaon, my God, out of these fields of green, mustard and wheat and other things that grow there, would be high-rises. And it's happening in exactly this spotty, unplanned way. In fact, I call this my concrete hiccup. When someone asks me, how would you describe the new Gurgaon? And I said, it's so unplanned. It's unplanned as a hiccup. So anyway, that's going on. So to understand Gurgaon becomes to really get a feel for what's going on in new cities. Or you take an old city like Bangalore, which is really older than even the colonial center of it. Is today we went to Bangalore and we drove through absolute miles of what looked exactly like Gurgaon. Gated communities, high-rises, malls, and the old Gurgaon has just totally lost its meaning. And I think it's this, it's the influence of everyone wants to be like. What are the cities you want to be like? Well, Singapore, Dubai, New York, these are the models. And without the glue that keeps, you know how fabulous New York is, I don't have to say that to any of you. That is missing, but the buildings resemble this. If you walked into a flat in Gurgaon, it would be probably bigger than Philippa's flat, twice as big, 10,000 square feet. I said, what do you do with this? They said, we like the space, we just live here. And I saw an art gallery open, and I went and met the owner, and I asked her, I said, who do you think is going to buy? She says, the reason why I don't have any paintings to show you is because they were all bought yesterday by someone who bought an apartment and wanted 3 of each color. And that's how art is sold. So it's still, it's a parvenu, novarish, whatever you want to call them. These people are making a lot of money, and they have come from God knows where all over India. And there's a large, you won't believe it, huge, I met a community of 8,000 Japanese people, because I saw a row of sushi restaurants. That's who goes here and who eats raw fish in the heart of Gurgaon, where there's no fish to be, it's all flown in. And there were these Japanese, Koreans, Filipinos, they're Asians, and there are Eastern Europeans. You find so many blonde girls. You go to a bar and you get your drink with this blonde girl and very busty and very beautiful. And I said, where are these people coming from? Who are these? How can they be working in a bar here? And they'll say, we've come from the Ukraine, we've come from Czechoslovakia, we've come from Poland. That's who's coming to Gurgaon. So in a way, it's very cosmopolitan in this shallow sense. It's not, you can't go and see a nice play or so on. But we have started to get even that with some very nice concerts. And there's a revival of Urdu through Dastan Goi, and Mahmood came and did a fabulous piece in the Biodiversity Park, which has an amphitheater. So things are happening, and as you know, Rome was not built in a day. So we have to simply wait and see where the city will happen. But I can tell you from my dismay when I first started to my feelings today, there has been a really heartening trend to becoming a decent city one day. It's not done yet, but it's on its way.
Thank you very much. Open to questions, discussions.
This was lovely, Veena, and I know we all enjoyed it. I particularly wanted to ask about your civic society discussion when Hindutva type stole the chappals of the Muslims who were doing namaz, they were made to give them back, and there was elaborate atonements and mutual feasts, and Hindu groups bore the costs of all the qurbanis for Eid and all that. What are the demographics of that? Like, what layer of society? You were constantly told, oh, Hindutva is becoming more and more respectable among higher and higher reaches of India. Who are the people who are doing this good civic society Hindu-Muslim thing?
Well, all these phases of Gurgaon, all these little parts that make up Gurgaon, have what are called RWA, Residents Welfare Associations. So these are all upper middle class people, chiefly rich people. By rich I mean even people like us who are well-to-do and live well and eat well and so on. And there are many, I've given a whole chapter to that, which is called Urban Angels, because, for example, Gurgaon collects a lot of tax because of all these foreign companies, all this industry, cars, motor cars, all sorts of things are being built. And construction is the biggest industry of all. So where does this money go that is collected in tax? And so it was, there's Jyoti Sagar, who's become a real, what is it called, PIL, Public Interest Litigation. So he's got it's called SURGE, SURGE, that's an acronym for Social, Urban, something. I mean, it's that sort of thing. NGOs. I Am Gurgaon is a group that even I belong to, and is very much women and very much educated women who are all professionals of various sorts. And we taken over the biodiversity park and got experts to come and tell us what should be planted, what should be done, and so on. Because everyone wanted, the chief minister said, oh, we can have Disneyland. And we said, no, we're not going to destroy this. It was a quarry. It's the Aravallis, the oldest 4 mountains in the world, of which one sort of ridge comes into Gurgaon. And they've mostly destroyed it by quarrying the stone and shipping it off to Delhi to build those fancy houses there. So now that quarrying was stopped, that land was taken over. The quarry was these 400 acres, and it's been replanted and made into this. And the park has just got small paths, and you can have lovely walks, and peacocks are dancing, and lots of wildlife, and so on. A leopard was once found and shot by some local gun bearer. I don't know who he was, but he killed the leopard. So these are the people who are doing it. The RWAs, the residential, they collect dues, and they're quite rich because they collect huge numbers of dues. And when this happened, there was the journalists are there, they came, they wrote about this. We went racing off to see what was going on, because one of the places was not far from us, and they said we have to give back the shoes. So I said, how are you going to get them back? They said, we know who's done it. There are just 4 or 5. You see, it's not everybody who's involved in this. All you need is 5 gundas, and they have some sort of clubs or perhaps a gun or something. They can bring the fear of God in you. You leave your shoes and run. You run for your lives. But they had removed the shoes while the prayer was going on, which was really very mean and childish thing to do. But they kept the shoes. They didn't destroy them or give them away, so they were taken back. And like Diwali, they said no, everyone has to participate. So the Muslim families were told to come. And you can find for example, Bengali Muslims. You know where they live. they tend to live in huge groups together. In Nathupur, for example, which I am very familiar with, these 3 villages that I visited the most, I can tell where the Bangladeshi people live because they're all talking in Bengali. And they came wearing saris, they came, wanting to eat fish and this and that. And now, in 5 years or 6 years, they have started to wear salwar kameez, which is a Punjabi dress, and they eat wheat, and they're totally assimilated so amazingly that you can't understand what's going on. So that way, Gurgaon has a fair. I thought, let me open with what happened in Gurgaon today. 3 men raped a woman who was going somewhere, but they were instantly nabbed and taken by the police. The other thing was that a man, a Brahmin man as they called him, stabbed his wife 40 times. These were the 2 articles of news in the paper today in Gurgaon. So I said, well, this is not very encouraging for women either way, you raped or murdered. But the fact that it is instantly reported and people take action, like they were arrested. This man who did it, not only was his name mentioned, his brother's name, his family, everything is out in the paper. This never used to happen. They would just say, well, some miscreant, something, very vague. But now action is taken, it's litigated. And I think that that's a positive sign, even though why should anyone rape or kill, but men are men, men will be men. So that's going to keep happening.
I have some questions which I wanted to raise. So that one is that the story of Gurgaon is a story of neoliberalism.
Yes.
I don't know whether you mentioned that because everything that you're saying, whether this image of Singapore or Dubai or wherever or even Nairobi, it's all the side of neoliberalism, and I think that's the story that you tell. And it's got to do with migration, it's got to do with the factories that you're talking about, it's got to do with the architecture that you're talking about. So I have just a few questions which I wanted to. One is Gurgaon, I mean, you keep referring to the Chief Minister, but Gurgaon is not a state, it's the Chief Minister of Haryana. So, I mean, with the Chandigarh, the capital, I have a series of questions which are all similar. How does the Chief Minister who's based in Chandigarh, what influence does he have on Gurgaon? And I mean, it's a milk cow, as you said, it's giving them a lot of revenue, and I'd like to know a little bit more about.
Yeah, see, this is what.
There's 2 or 3 others which are just linked with this, so it will help you, frame the reply. So this question of what is, I mean, it's, as you said, it's a very, very 269 Fortune 500 companies there, which means the revenue is being generated. So where is that money going? Is it going to Chandigarh? Is it being invested in Gurgaon? Is it a sort of union government tax? And then linked with that is this: what is the relationship of Gurgaon with Delhi? Now, Delhi is a state, it's a city, it's a state. Gurgaon is now, in some ways, seems to be a suburb of Delhi, but it isn't. It's another state altogether. Yeah. But now, because of the metro, it's just like South X or wherever you, or Vasant Kunj or wherever you want to be. So it's very much it's integrated. It seems to be, and from what I know, a lot of people sort of they use Gurgaon as a dormitory. They work in Delhi and they or maybe vice versa. I don't know. So I'd like you to sort of expand on that.
These are very excellent questions, which I think I've answered.
Yeah. So I mean, this
but I'll do it here because
the relationship with Delhi. Is it a suburb of Delhi? Is it being Delhiized or is it being Haryaniized? Is it being Chandigarhized? Or does it have, is Gurgaon always separate? I mean, and the fiscal thing. And I have other questions.
From the central government. Oh, you have some more. Can I just hand first? Because they're already there. The central government has created a notional national capital region. And what it has done is, Delhi is in the middle. The other rich place is Noida,
Yeah,
which is in UP.
Yeah.
And there's Gurgaon, Faridabad, Sonipat. These are all very rich towns of Haryana. Haryana is mainly going to be urban. They want the whole of Haryana to become a big town. That's the idea, that this is where towns will happen, because they have, they're so close to Delhi. This national capital region doesn't really work. What happens is that the center and the chief minister are in cahoots. For example, when Sanjay Gandhi, it began with Sanjay Gandhi's thing, and Mrs. Gandhi and Bansi Lal. They became so thick that Bansi Lal then moved. He left his chief ministership and politics, joined Sanjay Gandhi, and the two of them created the emergency. Bansi Lal, Sanjay Gandhi. He was his right-hand man. So you find that because now Gurgaon is trying to develop, and this is its challenge in trying to get over its adolescence as a city and be a mature place. It hasn't got a mayor. It's got a mayor. Someone told me there is a mayor. Don't say there isn't a mayor. I said, what does he do? What's his name? Doesn't anyone know where his office is? He says he doesn't have an office. He doesn't do anything. But he is a mayor. So you have to believe it. It's like God, It's that kind of thing. So now there is this development authority, there is a municipal corporation. Once these begin, they have no money. That's why our roads are cut out, chopped out, and then forgotten. Because the chief minister takes the money and the center takes the money. And this is the fight that all cities in India are going through. That the center has such a grip on the purse, it just sucks it all up. And there is corruption, as you know, I need hardly go into that. But here, Gurgaon just doesn't get back the money it needs. So a lot of people, private individuals, have started to, like the Devi Foundation is, I forget the name of the industrialists, but they are from Bombay, the Podars. And they have created this beautiful museum. It's private, but there's very little, 10 rupees or something you get in. So anyone can go and see it. And it's they show textiles and so on. It's not art, but the textile section is really superb. Aditya Arya, I told you this museum. There's another one who's created a fantastic automobile museum because of Maruti, and Maruti may be funding him a little bit. So you find that the new tax, which actually is doing a lot of good for Gurgaon, is called corporate responsibility, something corporate, social SCR. Social corporate responsibility. Every corporation has to give 2% of its taxes for social purposes, and they have to affect the poor. They have to be aimed at them. You can't just build a golf course and say, see, I've done it for the people. You can't do that. You have to make schools, you have to do this. So you find that a lot of that money, 2% of this taxation is a huge amount. They often, I have this Coca-Cola CEO sitting saying, Veena, tell me, where should I put this money? So I was saying, you use up so much water making a stupid drink, which is making people obese and giving them diabetes, you better do something about the water supply. And actually he did. He has done it. It's in this, I don't say that I had this conversation, but I do explain what Coca-Cola then is doing about water. Biodiversity Park, 100% funded by NGOs who collect money from the corporate heads. So it is a very strange experiment in the public-private. The first one being, Sanjay Gandhi taking over land and all that. But after that, there's been such a swell of pride in we are Gurgaonites. We, names like I am Gurgaon. Now I just saw a new one come up. We are Gurgaon. So there are lots of people writing to me saying become a member of We Are Gurgaon and send your contribution and so on. So that's going on and that's what's happening. And I think the center and the state have to decide how they want to raise their
What's the
cities.
relationship with Delhi?
Delhi is, the BJP government is in Haryana at the moment. So Mr. Khattar is total dead pumpkin in my view. But I think his days are numbered. I think BJP is
I meant as a sociological phenomenon. I mean, demographic, sociological.
Yeah, see, Mrs. Gandhi said it's a very bad example of keeping the Haryana chief minister in her pocket. Because Haryana is second, I think, only to Gujarat, the richest state now, because we have a lot of industry in Faridabad, Panipat, all these people. Then new universities are coming up. Everyone is wanting to be in Haryana. So Ashoka and Jindal and all these lined up in Sonipat. So a lot is going on in Haryana, and the center wants to keep an eye on it because it's a very rich state. So that's how they keep that. So it's invariably the center and the party in power are the same. And I haven't seen a BJP party when the Congress was in the center, and we didn't see any Congress parties now. But I don't know how that is managed. I'm not very sure that it's... But this time we plan in the election, the big election is coming in April this year, in 3 months. We are leaving in 2 days for Delhi. And everyone is really going to kick the BJP out. At least, or maybe I just know the wrong people who think this and are doing this. But we are very excited that there's going to be a change. Yes, Phil?
What made you decide to move to Gurgaon and build your house there?
Yeah, my decision was, it was a poor person's choice. I had a house, home in Lucknow, but things weren't going so well with my brother and sister-in-law. And I saw the future as not having a home in India, and that was unthinkable. And so in 1984, luckily before Gurgaon had become, it's very expensive real estate now. And I just was staying with the friends, that story too is tucked away somewhere in this book. He just said, 1984, I didn't have a regular job yet. I had started work at Sarah Lawrence, but there was no tenure line yet. So he just said, when are you going to retire? And I said, let me get a job and let us have a career. He said, no, it'll be too late. You will not be able to have a house if you wait that long. I said, but we don't have much money. So he said, well, there's some cheap land to be had in a place called Gurgaon. So I said, that village where those Jat people, sit in their pajamas and smoke their hookahs, I'm not going to, no way. So he said, stop being silly. Mr. K.P. Singh of DLF is building a fabulous city, and the Japanese, this, because of Maruti, this Suzuki, everyone thought that they're going to build the city. So we're going to have a city like in Japan, really swish. Vases with only one flower and streets with neat rows of cars and everyone behaving themselves. So he said, come on, let's see it. And so I went, and DLF was just in a tent. Today it has the greatest real estate anywhere in India. And in the tent, Mr. K.P. Singh himself sold me the plot. I came back home. We were leaving for America the next day, and Philip said, oh, I brought nice gifts for, friends and stuff like jackets and earrings. So I said, very nice, very nice. I also went shopping. I also bought something. So he said, what did you buy? I said, I can't show it to you. because I haven't seen it myself, which is true. I hadn't seen the plot, I hadn't been to Gurgaon. When he heard, he could hardly believe his ears. Then he said, I have to see this plot because you have bought it. I said, yes. So then we went back to Connaught Place, sat in the DLF bus, which used to leave at 10 o'clock to take prospective buyers to this outpost. And we went and they said, oh, it's just, in fact I discussed that it was supposed to be just a suburb of Delhi. In KP Singh's mind, he's always talking about, I made 22 colonies in South Delhi. Here, this will be just like Greater Kailash, just like South Extension. So we said, fine, we can't afford those, we buy this. And so we bought the land and forgot about it. And then finally a friend had come to stay, Ritu Menon and Pogi Menon. Pogi is an architect. And I said, I've looked at all the flats that are available in Delhi. I'm not very fond of them. They're either small or too big or too, I don't like the woodwork. So he said, you build your own. Build what you want. So he and I sat down and made a plan. And again, when Philip woke up, he started to then sketch. And so we now have what I think is a very nice home. And now that I'm retired, I've become Persephone. I call that the underworld, this the above world. So 6 months there and 6 months here. So that's what we do.
Hello ma'am. I'm Chitra. I'm a student at the International Affairs, School of International Affairs. Actually, I have been a resident of Gurgaon for the last 2 years before moving to Columbia. And so I just came in thinking that I will just get some historical perspectives on the city. And I have mixed feelings about living there. Like it's really nice in the morning and the day, and I'm not so sure about it in the night. So I have one question for you. Like as a historian, when you select a subject of a city, is there like an objective that you hope to achieve? Is there like a targeted audience for the book? Or
this one I say quite openly in my preface that it's not, I don't know how many people are interested in Gurgaon, academics. It's really for the people of Gurgaon, to give them some background, to give them some idea of how it's going, and actually in a way to arouse some sort of activism. Although I haven't done anything very polemical in this way, it's very simple. And I should have apologized to the Columbia audience. It is written so simply that you may not understand it. Because here the argot is so, so sophisticated that it's not written like that. But it's just for them. And it's also, when I think of it, as I was writing it, I kept saying, my God, this reminds you of so much urbanization everywhere. And I attended seminars in Delhi, at various institutes, and they were all talking about migration, about all the subjects which are so vivid in Gurgaon. You can just see it, it's a microcosm of all that's going on everywhere. So I was very encouraged to do this, and I finally got a Fulbright, and I sat down for 7 months and I wrote it, having looked at it for 20 years actually.
There's no Goregaon.
Goregaon is in Bombay.
So this Gurgaon doesn't come.
Gurgaon. It should be now called Goregaon because so many Goras have come there that it's, most of, Gora means white. So it's the white people who showed up, and there are lots of, because they can live as grandly as they do anywhere in America with servants, with a chauffeur-driven Jaguar, with the kind of luxury you can't dream of here, even being a millionaire, which you can get in Gurgaon.
Does anybody really call it Gurugram?
I don't.
You gave examples of a couple of the organizations called I Am Gurgaon or We Are Gurgaon.
They haven't changed.
Nobody has changed over to the
They
new
haven't,
name? Or
but
have?
the municipal corporation, all the maps, all the signage, such as it is, has been changed to Gurgaon. And I wrote a letter to the editor of Business Standard, I think, about Mr. Khattar, the chief minister, not being a game changer but a name changer. He keeps thinking of, now this street, there's a street called Shah Bakir Ali or some, there were people who lived there. There's a whole population of Mayos who are Muslim. So there are lots of Muslim names, and India is totally, never thought Allahabad was a name we wanted to change. It's got such a meaning for those of us who have grown up there. But this idiocy of changing everything into a Sanskrit name is really very sad. And it's sort of the emptiness, they have no ideas, so they can do this trivial, what is trivial, but in the end will have deep effects on, a more Hindu tone to everything.
Gurgaon was mentioned in the 1881 census, and it tells you about the Mayos and the tribes that live there. So it's part of the census as well.
Oh yeah. It was. That's why I never got even Badshahpur and places became towns, but not Gurgaon because they have very little. You see what happens with colonialism is that the British come in and they see this is a very forested part, and they need timber, and they need to make this part of what is now Haryana, this part of the Punjab, to make it give revenue, and they can only have revenue if it becomes arable. And there was no water, so what happens is they build a canal. The whole canal system comes to this part of East Punjab, and there's waterlogging. Very quickly, this land turns into salt fields. You read that, I've got it already in my dowry book because I just accidentally in that time chose Gurgaon as my eastern example of dowry, and then because I wanted one from each part of the Punjab, center and the west, the extreme west. So Gurgaon just becomes full of horrible disease. It's disease-ridden. Malaria comes with the canals, that elephantiasis, which is filaria, and a lot of typhoid and this and that. People die out. This becomes a ghost town. It wasn't a town, a ghost place. And when they build their district town, they're constantly complaining of disease. And so that was the deforestation and the canal building.
It's probably worth mentioning that the space between what was Delhi and Gurgaon is now New Delhi.
Yes.
And that it was only built in the mid-20th century. That all of that area was part of the same.
You see the whole expansion, urban expansion in Delhi and the Punjab begins with the partition. There's such a huge population. And there are all these small entrepreneurs, the Punjabis come and they have nothing at all. No housing, no jobs, no way to earn a living. So this was built, they just gave, even Delhi, South Delhi was given to DLF to just develop, and they made all these colonies are theirs. Horse Khas, Greater Kailash to South Extension, all. And then societies, the engineering society made Panchsheel, and the doctors made this and that. And so urbanization speeded up, and new cities were hardly built. The old cities were expanded. We've had 2 or 3 new, like Chandigarh was brand new, like Islamabad, you have Chandigarh on this side. and you have Bhubaneswar, because again, the eastern part is partition, so you get Bhubaneswar. Which was again an old village with lots of temples, and now it's a very lovely city actually. And the idea was you just make these sectors and you make this an industrial city and you make, and so then Tata built his Tata Nagar, Modi built his, not that Modi, this is Modi industrialist, built Modi Nagar just outside Delhi. So private building of cities begins in this fashion. And nobody was given any contract on Gurgaon. They were competing real estate agents. And so they built, it's haphazard and a lot of problems, but now a lot of connecting roads and underpasses and overbridges have been made. And the best part, by the way, should anyone come there, it's not a tourist destination, but it's we live there, so we came here there. And there's a place called Cyber Hub, which is right in the heart of this cyber city has been created. It's really very impressive at night. You have to wear dark glasses at night. I do, because I have bad eye, I have to wear my dark glasses at midnight because it's so brightly lit. And there are 54 new restaurants in this one complex. Anything you want to have. Per se, which was a very fancy restaurant in this city, opened a branch in Gurgaon. I nearly fainted. I said, what? But their prices were so extraordinary. They only wanted everything named in dollars, and full tasting menu was $400. I said, who's going to pay $400? Even here, I'm not about to pay $400 for a meal at any cost. So that's it's a success story, but it is mangled with bad management, lack of vision, lack of planning, but slowly, and it's people taking the initiative to say, stop this, we're not going to do this.
They got the park built.
Yeah, no, guess what? The park is taken, because it was a quarry, it was taken over by the municipal corporation. But there was one very nice commissioner who said, yes, I want the park, this would be very nice. But he didn't sign any papers to say that. He just told them and we took it over and no formal deed was made. So along comes the Highway Authority of India, which is a central authority with the central government. And they said, we want to make a shortcut through the park. 8-lane highway. So guess what happened? Gurgaon rose up, went to the park and lay down.
Yeah.
Just lay down on the grounds. They said, just try building a road here, we will dig you up and throw you out. Every time you make a hole, we'll fill it up. We will not allow it to happen. This was happening when I was here, and I was calling my friend and saying, is this what? I said, we will not let it happen. Don't worry, we are just totally fierce. Even the police did not raise their, they were summoned by the central government. They said, we send the army. The army headquarters is right next to Gurgaon. In fact, when the metro was being built, they had to take a huge arc, and there's a big turns and things before it gets to Gurgaon. So why didn't it just come the way most trains, run on straight tracks? They said, well, the nuclear arsenal, I shouldn't be telling you, right? You tell Mr. Ziaul Haq or whoever's in power now.
His name is Imran Khan.
Imran Khan, you tell Imran.
He's more interested in other things.
So it's right there. It's in Arjangarh, which is next, it's about 3 kilometers from our house, 2 kilometers from our house. So that, the army is very, very strong, and so you can call in the troops. Nobody came. The army said, this is not our job. Let the police do it. The police actually, if you see, every taxi has a number on it. for women. Call this number if the driver makes any bad moves or if you find anything suspicious. Call us. Put this number into your cell phone that gives you all the instructions and just have it on a one tap and you're connected. And we will get you, we have GPS and we have this and that. So it's becoming a goodish, things are happening, but why did they have to go so terribly wrong in all it? We could have planned it from the start.
Please join me in thanking Veena for this talk and continue with the reception. Thank you.
Come and have a glass of wine.